It's 1 a.m. here in New York, midnight in Iowa, and the very first test of the 2024 Republican primary season is now complete. Joining me now at the top of this hour is former Obama campaign manager, MSNBC political analyst, and my former boss, David Plouffe, former RNC chairman and co-host of The Weekend, Michael Steele, former communications director for Jeb Bush's 2016 campaign, and now writer-at-large for The Bulwark, Tim Miller, and former communications director for President Barack Obama, Jennifer Palmieri. Now, tonight in Iowa, NBC News projected that Donald Trump won the caucuses with more than 50% of the vote. These numbers really cement the four times indicted defendant candidate's status as the front runner. We already knew this, but in the Republican field. The race for second place had a little bit more drama, with Nikki Haley and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis locked in a dead heat for most of the night. But as awkward as he may be at times, and he is awkward, DeSantis did put in the work in Iowa, and maybe that helped him. He visited all 99 counties, and it paid off a bit with a second-place finish in the state, even if he doesn't have a real path forward, it seems. Third-place finisher Nikki Haley is now off to New Hampshire, where traditionally presidential candidates go right after the Iowa caucuses. But not Donald Trump. He will once again buck tradition and head to a courtroom in New York City for the start of the E. Jean Carroll defamation trial. And that civil case is, of course, on top of the 4 criminal trials that Trump is also facing, where he also seems to want to appear in the courtrooms, involving his hoarding of classified information and attempts to overturn the last election, just to name a few. But Trump's legal woes certainly didn't hold him back tonight. As we were just talking about 2/3 of Iowa caucus goers say that even if he's convicted, they still consider him to fit to be president. So this slice of the Republican electorate seems pretty clear who their first choice is, criminal charges and all. Back with me is my all-star panel here. So we've talked a lot about Trump. We've talked a lot about the Republican candidates. Let's talk a little bit about the other guy running, President Joe Biden. So, Plouffe, you talked to the campaign a lot. If they're watching what happened tonight, what do they think of it? Do they think about it?
Well, one thing that's important when you're incumbent is, when does the general election start? And so this would suggest it's going to start a lot sooner than you'd probably like.
Is that good for them?
I would argue maybe it is, just because the sooner this turns into a searing contrast, probably the better off Biden is. So even if you'd probably like a couple more months to prepare, I think being in that boxing ring with him and him alone is probably helpful. And I think what it shows is, the Republican Party is, my guess is, the biggest concern I have as I think about next November is the turnout differential that could be there. There's not the enthusiasm for Biden that you'd like. Maybe they can remedy that. I think Trump's going to get his turnout. There's clearly some disaffected Republicans that may sit it out, or maybe Biden could do as well as he did in 20, and that was important. But I think Trump's going to get his turnout. I would argue if he gets convicted, even more so. So I think these numbers show whatever you think it's going to take to win a state like Wisconsin or Arizona, if I'm the Biden campaign, I add 10% to it. It's basically a tax that the Trump turnout's going to be there. But that's the big thing is, starting next Tuesday, if Haley doesn't win New Hampshire, Trump's speech is going to be, I'm done with the primary. I've dispatched with all these second-rate losers, and it's time for the rematch. Yep. And it's going to be right on your doorstep, whether you like it or not.
The Biden campaign is fundraising off of Trump's front-runner status tonight. They don't really utter the names Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis, because none of them think that they're going to be running against them. They do have this interesting challenge, which you've talked about on the Republican side, too, where there's this belief from a fair number of undecided voters that it's not going to be Trump-Biden, right? That it won't be Trump on the other side, which, to Plouffe's point, if this is clear that it's Trump to everyone, they are helped by that. But what do you think they should be doing to make that more clear?
The Biden people?
Yeah.
I agree with everything David said. I think if I'm advising the president's campaign right now, I'd look at them and say, can you put our boy on the street? Can you just have him walk some neighborhoods? Have him go sit on,
As in President Biden.
President Biden, yeah.
Our boy.
Our boy, yeah.
Yeah, just to be clear, which is fine. I don't, people may be like, who's the boy?
But that's my point. You got to bring it to that level so that people understand he's my boy. They got to connect with this guy, and he is connectable. And Democrats overthink the proposition here. This is not a complicated scenario against Donald Trump. it is a very complicated scenario against Nikki Haley. And so you need to understand the runway you're being given. So let Donald Trump try to shorten that runway by coming out of New Hampshire saying, okay, let's do it. I'm ready. I'm ready too. Where you want to meet so I can talk about your 91 indictments.
91.
So I can talk about your E.G. Carroll problem. And I can talk about the money you have to pay out. Oh, are your donors still paying your legal bills? I mean, this is the level that the campaign has to be prepared to go. And if you don't really want to see your boy get into that space, meaning the president, okay, then the political operation around him has to go there. And they haven't yet, and that to me is stunning.
I mean, I do think that your boy, President Joe Biden, going into communities is actually, to your point, what his superpower is, right? I mean, he's kind of more extroverted than almost anyone I've met. I mean, it's downright exhausting, actually. But he loves that glad handing and all of that stuff. It's often blamed on the communication strategy, which we all know is like never the totality of the issue.
Spot for you?
I know, it's like I'm feeling I'm getting shakes. I'm sure. I used to have mug. would say we'd make mugs that say not a comms problem, because sometimes it's
just
oftentimes
a problem,
not a comms problem. But talk to me, both of you, whoever wants to start, a little bit about, we know what Joe Biden's superpowers are, right? He's empathetic. He connects with people. He loves, glad handing. He did give 2 good speeches, but that's not his superpower. It's not even really how people are voting. So what should they be doing?
I think that, first of all, I would say I do think that I know the Biden campaign is like, this is going to be the earliest general election we've ever had.
Yeah.
They're prepared for that. It started on January 5th with that speech that he gave in Valley Forge. And I think, they are making a ton of hires. They have their hires for the battleground. People are in the battlegrounds in January, right? Like normally you're hoping to get people there May, June, July. Like they are actually on it. And he did, last week he did Valley Forge. He went to South Carolina. The vice president has been in all the early primary states. He went back to Pennsylvania later in the week. He's going to go to Michigan. He's going to Nevada. He is, and in making these speeches, they're doing the big contrast with Trump, on democracy and freedoms and all that things that are at stake. They're also, if you look at what he says, but then also what they're doing online, and I know you saw this when you went to Wilmington, Jen, that very targeted communication around accomplishments for African-American voters, accomplishments for Hispanic voters, the voters they had in 20 that they have to win back. So it's not like, they're asleep at the switch. They're on it in terms of actually now implementing plans. I think that, and because we've been causing trouble in the back all night talking. Why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? More of this. And we're all in agreement that we need to see more of Joe Biden. And, even though he's older and and he can misspeak, let us see that. Let us be accustomed to it, and let us see what we love about the guy too. And if you want to put a pit dog on television, Mitch Landrieu is going over to the campaign, and that guy,
I know,
he is an amazing communicator.
He's a pit bull dog, yes, but he's also a politico. He also loves to glad hand and also talks like a normal human being. To Palmieri's point, I did spend some time with the campaign, and one of the things, obviously, you have to meet people where they are, an overused term, but they're very focused on that. A lot of what they're happening is a little behind the scenes. It's like hard to break through the blocking out of the sun of Donald Trump and the crazy stuff he says and all of his legal issues. So a lot of what they're doing online is private, it's targeted, but I mean, Tim, you and I have talked often about how you wish. It's so funny.
I just want more.
Tim wants more, but Tim also always asks me, why can't the Democratic Party just sing off the same song sheet?
Just once.
Okay.
Oh my
because
gosh,
it's
just
not
once.
a monolithic party like the Republican Party.
Give me more.
We'll put the lyrics in bigger letters for you if you need, but please.
Give me more of Biden and give me more Biden's people out there. I do need more. I need more Biden surrogates. I need more Biden. We don't need to treat him like fine china. I do want to see him out there. I wanted to go back to one other thing, though, to what David said. I think there might have been maybe some good news for Biden, though, in the numbers tonight. I agree that in general Trump will get his people out. But this caucus turnout wasn't anything.
No, it was actually small. Even after all of the Iowans were saying, we're fine, we're going to put on socks and go out in the cold.
So maybe that's the weather, maybe that's the fact that it's a blowout, but I think it's just something to keep an eye on. 167,000 last time. It looks like we're at 120-something right now. So a big downtick from 2016. The other thing is, what's this number? Now, 32%, if Trump is convicted, is unfit to be president. That's a big number. Even if that's off, even if it's 22%, and even if he's not convicted, that's a group of people for the Biden campaign to work from. Like, they can speak to those people and they can persuade those people, and that is a persuadable audience. The folks that went out there to vote for Nikki Haley today, it seems like most of them are pretty sick of Donald Trump in a way that, you know, getting almost to Tim Miller and Michael Steele. I don't know if they're ready to call Joe Biden their boy yet, but they seem pretty sick of Donald Trump. And so I think that was also encouraging and is like another, you know, big fat ball coming down the middle of the plate for the Biden campaign if they can hit it.
Can I just add one more number to back up what Tim's saying? One other important number that's buried in here for the Biden campaign, which is good. Of the Republican caucus goers, 11% of them said if it's a Biden-Trump November, they'll vote for Biden. So to really emphasize the point that Tim made, there's a lot in this mix in a state like Iowa that's good for Democrats to take out of Iowa as they begin to put in place that advance on the
and
general
a third
election.
were against an abortion ban, which.
No, there's a lot of material there. And of course, in the actual battleground states, which sadly Iowa is not anymore,
Right.
You know, we live in a sophisticated data world. So the Biden campaign will have a pretty good sense of who those actual voters are. And just, you know, presidential campaign can seem overwhelming, but it's actually quite simple. In this election, it's like 7 states. That's all it is. It's not 50. And it's
not Iowa.
4 to 5% of actual swing voters. That's it. Small number of Americans. And it's a fairly small number of people that you're trying to get to turn out. You're not sure who's going to turn out. So I think in these numbers, with the swing voters, I think there's a lot to be encouraged by. But I think for Biden to win, you've got to make sure that you do both sides of it, that you reach your turnout goals. And you may be right. My suspicion has all been wrong, though. If the call to Republicans to restore the wrongfully, you know, terminated leader is going to be pretty strong. And I always think in campaigns, it's always better, even if your data says they're going to get 10 votes in a precinct, assume they're going to get 12. Like, you got to raise your numbers. But I do think with swing voters, and the 11% number, I hadn't seen that. You said these are hardcore, mostly evangelical Iowa caucus attenders saying that, not general elected Republicans. That would suggest that maybe there's up to 15, 18%. He won't get them all. But boy, if Biden could end up getting 6 to 8%, you know, that's how he gets to 270 again.
Yeah, it's a game changer.
This is all very interesting and gives us a little hope. We need a little hope moment out of tonight.